So I call this meeting to order. It is 7:29 p.m. This is the October 21st, 2020 meeting of the River Edge Municipal Land Use Board. I call the meeting to order and read the following. Notice of this meeting has been posted at Borough Hall. On the door at Borough Hall has been notice of same has been sent to the Record, the Ridgewood News, and all people that have an interest in this meeting for this evening. We're being recorded electronically through Zoom, and the ID number for this Zoom meeting is 825-5901-0122. And of course, we're being recorded to have a record of this meeting. Our host tonight is Councilwoman Michelle Kaufman. Councilwoman, I say thank you for helping us out again. You've been a great help during this whole crisis that we're dealing with, and
my pleasure.
thank you for that. So we'll dispense with the flag salute for obvious reasons, and we'll get right into the approval of the minutes. And I do not believe there are minutes available.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, we'll do a roll call.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Roll call, please.
The mayor is absent. Mr. Arkelian,
Here.
Ms. Boland.
Oh, here. I was
Okay.
muted.
All right, Mr. Bartoloni is absent. Mr. Merman,
Here.
Mr. Grasso,
Here.
Mr. Cray,
Here.
Mr. Caslin.
Here.
Councilman Canigo is absent today.
He's excused.
Mr. Gibbons, I don't see him. And then Mr. Esposito.
Here.
Okay.
Okay, so to start out, we in correspondence, the minutes aren't available. I understand there was a little snafu with her getting the recording, so we'll save that for next month. And we have two memorializations for this evening. The first memorialization is Hi Annie Lee of 830 Kinderkamak Road, Block 212, Lot 23. She had a pickling operation, and that she was going to be opening up in town, and we're excited to have her bring her wares to town. And she was just for a basic food license. We approved it. You should have the memorialization in front of you. Anybody have any questions? So you see no questions. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve.
So made.
Excuse me.
Okay.
Oh, I'd like to
Make the
entertain a motion.
Merman makes the motion to accept.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Chris, roll
Okay.
call, please.
Mr. Arkelian,
Yes.
Ms. Boland was absent at the meeting, so she may recuse herself if she'd
Yes.
like.
Mhm.
Okay. Mr. Merman,
Yes.
Mr. Grasso was also absent at that meeting, so he may recuse himself if he'd like.
Yes, I'm going to recuse myself. Thank you.
Okay. And then Mr. Cray,
Yes.
Mr. Caslin,
Yes.
and Mr. Esposito.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, motion passes. Next up is a memorialization for Tarikaben and Fatima Oak. And they're at 364 Lee Avenue, Block 1002, Lot 54. It was a minor addition to the home. We gave them their approval. You have the memorialization in front of you. Any questions?
I just had one minor edit, that the planner who testified, I neglected to include the professional planner designation, so I'm going to include that in the resolution.
Okay, so if there's no more questions, I'd like a motion as corrected for this memorialization.
So moved. Mike Ray.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
Mr. Esposito. Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Arkelian,
Yes.
Ms. Boland,
I recuse myself.
okay, Mr. Merman,
No.
okay, Mr. Grosso?
Was this at the last meeting?
Yes.
That
it
was- That was
Okay. If it was at the last meeting, you said?
Yes, it was.
Okay, I was not present at that meeting, so I'm going to recuse myself.
Okay, Mr. Cray?
Yes.
Mr. Caslin?
No.
Mr. Esposito?
Yes.
Okay, there's 3 yes votes and 2 no. Since it's just for memorialization, I believe that is acceptable, but I'll have to confirm.
Okay, and also, just for the record, we do have 2 of our voting members absent this evening. So Mr. Esposito, who is an alternate, is officially a voting member for this evening. Okay,
Okay.
okay, so I'm going to skip over real quick the re-examination. And we're going to go for completeness review. And the first one up was Aston Breton, 17 Elizabeth, block 1407, lot 3. And they wanted to do a substantial renovation, turning a 1-family into a 2-family, requiring a D variance. Marina, I'll let you take this one.
So today the applicant requested that this application be moved to the next hearing, and I recommend that the board permit the application to be moved or to be carried to the next meeting without any additional notice.
Any questions from the board?
Do you need the date for that meeting, or is it sufficient to just say the next?
I believe the next meeting, if I think Ed's on, it'll be November 4th.
I believe it is November.
It's
4th.
November 4th.
Okay,
Just
so the
throwing
next
that out.
meeting will be November 4th, 2020.
Any other comments? Okay, a motion on to table this application for the next meeting?
Merman so made.
Have a
Second,
I heard Mr. Grosso for the second. Okay, Mr. Arakelian,
Yes.
Ms. Boland,
Yes.
Mr. Merman,
Yes.
Mr. Grosso,
yes.
Mr. Cray,
Yes.
Mr. Caslin,
Yes.
Mr. Esposito.
Yes.
Okay.
Marina, you want to make the announcement?
The application for Asan Breton, 17 Elizabeth Street, block 1407, lot 3, has been carried to the November 4th, 2020 meeting of the River Edge Municipal Land Use Board.
With no further notice needed.
Correct.
Okay. So the next up is Yakov Shamus, 230 Kensington Road, block 707, lot 24. And he's looking to develop 250 feet of patio to add to his impervious coverage. Is the applicant here?
Yep,
Hi, good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm good. How about yourself?
I'm good, thank you. All right, I'm going to go to Tom.
I've reviewed the application materials, and the application from my standpoint is complete to be heard this evening.
Ms. Finley?
But prior to the meeting, I reviewed the proof submitted by the applicant, the publication, and the notices submitted to neighboring property owners, and they are sufficient for the board to have jurisdiction tonight.
Can I have a motion to move this to the regular meeting?
Merman so made.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay,
Mr. Esposito? Roll call, please.
Mr. Kellion,
Yes.
Ms. Boland,
Yes.
Mr. Merman,
Yes.
Mr. Grasso,
Yes.
Mr. Cray,
Yes.
Mr. Caslin,
Yes.
and Mr. Esposito.
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to move to new business. And again, but 17 Elizabeth Street has been carried. So it's 230 Kensington Road, block 707, lot 24. And that's Yakov Shamus. Good evening, sir, again. Marina, why don't you swear him in so we can
Okay. Mr. Shamus, you can unmute yourself.
Yep. Hi.
And am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Yeah, Seamus. First name is Jakob.
Okay, Jakob. All right, so could you please raise your right hand? Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Could you please state your full name and address for the record and spell your last name?
Jakob Seamus, 230 Kensington Road, River Edge, New Jersey. Last name is Seamus, Shamis.
And do you have anyone else here with you in support of the application?
No.
Okay. I just wanted to ask, there's one other member of the public, it looks like,
Looks
here.
like two.
Andrew Feathis?
Yes, that's me. I'm actually with the Killam Mediterranean restaurant. I'm the architect.
I don't believe that application will be heard tonight. It was, the applicant had decided to move it to another meeting. I believe, Ed, is that correct?
Which application we
The Killam
Talking about?
Killam Mediterranean?
Killam is not going to be heard tonight. They have still yet to submit an application.
Okay, fair enough. Then
Okay.
I guess I'll check out. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Pettis. And I see Lisa Chiavella.
Isn't she one of the lawyers?
I believe she's one
That
of
is our
the
board secretary.
secretary.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's our board secretary.
Oh, hi, Lisa. I didn't see your face. Sorry. Okay. So, where applicant go? Okay, there
Okay,
you are.
so
My squares moved a little bit. So, Mr. Seamus, why don't you quickly tell the board what you're looking to accomplish this evening?
Yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate the time here. So just a quick kind of like update. So we bought the house about a year ago, last summer. We moved to River Edge. We bought it from a builder. And, you know, when we bought a house, we assumed that everything was in order and, you know, kind of like everything was up to code and up to spec. This summer, you know, we've kind of like we wanted to use more and more of the backyard, and we wanted to add a little patio, like just something, you know, sufficient for a table and a couple of chairs and maybe kind of like, you know, an umbrella. And when I submitted all the paperwork, we discovered that basically the builder who kind of like built the house already kind of like stretched the limits. And as such, you know, I can't build that little patio. And, you know, the only thing we really want to do is just to have a small place where we can utilize the backyard. The kids can play with the dog there and just, you know, host some friends. And we're just looking for a way to do so.
Okay. That's a common tale, by the way, Mr. Seamus. The builders build out as far as they can go within the borough guidelines, and then what's happening to you is happening to you.
Yeah.
So,
And by the way, I do appreciate all the help from both Tom and Ed, kind of like, you know, getting everything and reviewing all the information to kind of like help move forward. But yeah, we just discovered, you know, when we submitted the information, and then we kind of like have been informed that the builder has basically kind of like exceeded limits. However, we really kind of like want to have just a small place in the backyard to have a table and, you know, place for a grill.
Mr. Behrens.
Yes, good evening. So as Mr. Seamus stated, he basically inherited the property at about 41%, whereas the developer had gotten approval for 35%, which was an issue with reviewing the as-built plan. I'd say within the last year, we've tightened that up where we are now very closely reviewing all the as-built plans, so this kind of thing doesn't happen. And so the existing condition is 41%. Mr. Seamus's proposed patio is actually 232 square feet. It's been reduced from the time that I originally reviewed it, and that brings it up to about 44%, which, you know, I know it may be a little bit above the board's threshold. The lot size itself is about 6,000 square feet, which would be considered undersized in the borough. If you look at, I actually have it up right now, an aerial image of that particular block. There are a number of homes with similar or even larger decks and patios. So I think it's not an uncommon feature, to have in this area or for most single family homes in town. So in terms of the board thinking about the application, the property is what it is. Mr. Seamus is requesting the relief, and perhaps there is some sort of justification relative to the hardship of the lot being undersized. Mr. Seamus, I think you mentioned in our private conversations that there are seepage pits on the property. Is that true?
Yes, they are.
And if the borough found a need to connect the patio drainage to that, that might be something you would consider?
Yeah, they're already in the back of the house, so we can easily do that.
Okay, so that's the gist of it. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
So Tom, what you're basically stating is the builder went over the specs and nobody caught it.
Correct.
All right, so we should get a memo. Maybe you should get a memo out to the building inspector to be a little more cogent in the future.
Well,
We run across this problem, because these guys are going to try to take advantage of us until we put a stop to it.
We are addressing it in the building department, and it's actually been a function of, as the zoning officer, it's been what I've been doing, and we like I said, we've tightened up on that. So I will, moving forward, we're making sure that's getting done, that every as-built is getting reviewed and signed off on. So
Where did they deviate? Was it the structure, or was it the drive, or?
So the developer basically maxed out the house, and if I can share my screen, I'll throw up the, bear with me while I do this real quick. Can everyone see the screen?
Yes.
The map? Okay, so I think the developer had, to squeak in the 35%, I think he had talked about removing some of the walkways to get there. This particular area that I have my arrow is actually sort of a field stone walkway and is not a contiguous paved area. This walkway goes to a side entrance to the house, and then the front walkways are what they are. So I don't know if there's much wiggle room at this point to modify the plan, if that, would make sense for anybody. So it is what it is at this point.
Right, but so the structure is what he showed us, but the walkways and driveways are where he deviated generally?
Well, he had submitted a plan, and when I reviewed the file, as I do with all reviews, there were notes on the plan, which I had not been part of that previous process, but there were notes indicating that certain paved areas would be removed.
Got it.
Typically prior to the CO, and in reality, they were not removed.
Okay.
So that's.
Tom, if a home is over the percentage, if it's an existing home and they use the same footprint, are they permitted to build it over? If it's over the 35% and it's the existing footprint.
The technical answer the technical answer is that if it hasn't gotten any sort of board approval and it's over that, really they should need variance. I mean, we look at every situation on a case by case basis. I guess that's the fair answer. And,
okay. Thank you.
Mr. Seamus, a quick question. Are you looking to take any of those pieces that the builder had promised to remove? Are you looking to take any of that away, or are you looking to just keep everything?
We were actually just looking to add those. The reason is that this is kind of like a large concrete slab that is put in here, and I don't know if then you'll kind of like how we get into the back of the house from the garage, but if needed, we can maybe look into this. But no, we were just looking to just really kind of like minimize the area and just put enough room for like a table, chairs, and a grill.
Okay, I'm going to, Tom, can you take that back down so I can see the board again?
Yep. Once I figure out how to do it. Sorry. Bear with me. I got a few different screens up here. All right, I got it. Okay.
There's everybody. Okay. So I'm going to go around the board and call everybody to see if they have any questions. I'll start with Mr. Esposito.
None at this time.
Chris Caslin,
No questions, thanks.
Mr. Cray,
Just a minor question, it probably doesn't matter, but it was 6,080 square foot lot and you're adding 232 feet in the patio, which would be about another 3.8%, right? So I'm just saying on the the dimensions, it's showing going from 41 to 44.4. It's actually at 44.9. It's a minor difference, but we're already over the limit. So just want to be accurate in the numbers we're looking at. But other than that, no questions.
thank you, sir. Mr. Grasso,
I have no questions.
okay. Mr. Merman,
I have a question for Tom.
Yes.
Tom, those stepping stones,
Yeah.
how were the area of those, did they enter into the calculation somehow?
I believe they did because I reviewed the survey primarily, which looks like a contiguous paved area, so they were factored in. Yes.
Okay, so the variance includes the stepping stones that remain, and I assume that you made a net deduction for the ones that are being covered by the new patio.
Correct.
Okay, all right. Those are my only comments, Mr. Chairman.
okay. Ms. Boland,
No question.
okay. So I know usually the board does not like to go over. We've kind of looked at a certain percentile and we're hesitant to go over that number. However, unfortunately, Mr. Seamus was sold a house that was built not according to what the specs were, and now he's kind of stuck with it. And looking at the survey and looking at the backyard, I could see where there's a strong need for something to be able to put a table and a couple chairs. So considering that it's a newer home and that it has the seepage pits already in place and he can always tie into it, as long as he agrees to abide by our borough engineer as far as water retainment, I personally am fine with this application because of the special circumstances.
Mr. Chairman, you need a
So,
motion?
at this point, I want to entertain.
So I just want to
Sorry, Mr.
clarify.
Harmon?
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to clarify the size of the patio and the percentage coverage.
For the purposes of the resolution, the patio is 232 square feet, and I believe where Mr. Cray pointed out that that's really 3.8% of the lot size, that there was some net deduction because the patio is covering some impervious coverage that is there. And so in the resolution, it may be worth noting both so that Mr. Seamus can get the relief that he's requesting. I can confirm that.
Since the board's had its opportunity to question the applicant, I'd like to open up the meeting to the public. Have a motion, please.
So moved.
Second, Merman.
Have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
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 I frozen here? I am. So my screen is frozen.
We can
And
still hear.
everybody's back.
There you go.
You're back now.
There are no members of the public.
So we open to the public. There's nobody here except Councilwoman Kaufman. Do you have anything you want to add?
No, thank you.
Okay, motion to close to the public. Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstained? Okay. Does anybody else from the board have any questions or comments, concerns? Got frozen again. Folks, I apologize. I think I'm frozen.
No,
Either that or Mr. Merman is just frozen there. Can anybody hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes.
All right,
Yeah, we
so
can.
now everybody will move it around again. All right, so before my internet connection goes completely dead, I'd like to entertain a motion on this applicant.
Mr. Chairman, Berman here. I'll offer a motion that the Land Use Board accept this application for the noted variance of a maximum approved coverage for 230 Kensington Road, Block 707, Lot 24. And in doing so, I would like to note within the motion that this lot is a substandard lot of 60-foot width, and that imposes a hardship for the applicant.
I'll accept that motion. Do I have a second?
second,
Ms. Boland. Ms. Finley, roll call, please.
Okay, Mr. Arakelian,
Yes.
Ms. Boland,
yes,
Mr. Merman,
Yes,
Mr. Grasso,
Yes, that was the correct address, 230 Kensington?
230.
Okay, yes.
Mr. Cray,
Yes.
Mr. Caslin,
Yes.
Mr. Esposito.
Yes,
Okay, the motion passes.
Mr. Seamus, congratulations. Enjoy your
Yes.
patio.
welcome to
And don't be afraid to tell your friends
I
about
really
it.
appreciate you guys listening and hearing us. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank
good
you.
luck to you. We wish you well. Thank you.
thank you.
Good luck.
So I'm looking at my screen here and I feel like I'm driving down a highway and the and the gas gauge is on E because everybody's freezing and then not freezing. So hopefully we can finish this off here. Next we have a discussion of the master plan reexamination report by Mr. Behrens. You should have
Mr.
gotten a
Shame,
copy.
Mr. Seamus, you're free to leave. You don't have to stay unless you'd like to.
Oh, thank you so much. Good night. Good night, guys.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Right, sir. Okay, so we have the master plan report, as you know. We've been going back and forth a little bit on this for review, but we really need to get this done for the town, for both the affordable housing and just to get our master plan completed. So I've spoken with Mr. Behrens, and I think we've come to a good conclusion on it, but I'm going to hand it over to Tom. Go ahead, Tom.
Good evening, board members. Again, Tom Behrens, Borough Planner. You should have received a copy by email of the borough's reexamination report of the master plan and development ordinances dated October 9th, 2020. As the chairman mentioned, you may recall that we had reviewed a draft some months ago, and we've since met with the subcommittee to refine the document. And having moved beyond certain affordable housing requirements, we're now in a position to be able to move this document forward. This is a requirement that has to be done within a 10-year period as required by the municipal land use law in order to maintain a valid development ordinance. And with respect to this document, it's broken up into several different sections. One, it provides a review of the legal requirements, both for planning and reexamination reports such as this document, as well as a list of previous master plan efforts undertaken by the borough, which date back all the way to 1971. And interestingly enough, there was a developer who had done some demo work in town and found a zoning ordinance that dates back. It was either 1916 or 1926, but the borough has been very active in its development regulations and policies for quite some time, and at that point in time was ahead of its time. So just found that to be interesting. The second section of the document has to do with the major problems and objectives, as well as the extent to which they've been addressed, relating to the 2009 reexamination report. Again, this is another required component of the reexamination report. The third required component are the changes in assumptions and policies and objectives. They have to do with changes in local conditions, state and county level changes. One significant change that might come to a head soon is the state's marijuana policy, which I believe is on the ballot for November. We'll see how that goes. And that might be something needing to be addressed sooner than later, depending which way it goes. The fourth requirement, or fourth section rather, are specific changes that are being recommended. And I'll tick off a few of those real quick. One has to do with first, an affirmation of the existing goals and objectives set forth in the borough's previous planning documents, which are the 1984 master plan and also the 2009 reexamination report. We do provide a few extra recommendations which talk about generally gateway enhancements to the borough. So areas like bridge crossings or significant entrances to the borough, which you typically want to be nice and let people know that they're entering River Edge and that it's a special town, and to see what we can do in those different areas. The another recommendation has to do with how we've addressed affordable housing, and that we've adopted an overlay zone and are in the process of adopting 2 redevelopment plans. Another has to do with enhancing public transportation connectivity, including the town's 2 train stations and number of bus routes. A fourth recommendation has to do with addressing the borough's properties that are directly along Route 4 eastbound. There's, I forget how many lots, maybe 4 or 5 lots that are sort of unique and might deserve their own zoning considerations apart from the typical C2 zone where they're currently located. The next recommendation has to do with the C2 zone itself and circulation in that area, and to the extent that the uses and bulk regulations therein, whether or not they should be reevaluated. We then talk about recreation and open space and opportunities to possibly enhance the borough's many existing parks and green spaces. There is a recommendation about addressing smart growth and sustainability, including provisions for electric vehicle charging stations, which is now a requirement of any new land use plan element. We talk about maintaining a diversity in non-residential ratables and exploring whether or not there should be some new permitted uses in the non-residential zones in town, as well as the final recommendation is to review the borough's development regulations. And we had an example of this issue tonight where we've talked about limiting what developers can do in terms of maxing out the home, so they leave prospective buyers without a patio or deck, which are typical, and putting the board in a position of having to consider those applications, and if there's something we should be doing in terms of the permitted coverages, among other considerations. So those are the recommendations that we have. I guess I'll put the rest of the review on hold, but I think the report, for the purpose of fulfilling the statutory requirement, we're recommending that the board consider adopting it tonight, but that we should also consider maybe expanding or expand or reconsider some of the recommendations set forth in the plan within the near future, to have a more comprehensive range of actionable items. And the
Right.
fifth,
One of the things Tom and I discussed earlier today on the phone was if we adopt this document tonight, it will have a measure of, for lack of better words, tweakability, where we'll be able to tweak it as we need to better serve the borough. But at least we get the basic document down and passed and through the pipeline, so the borough can move on with their whatever obligations they need to complete with the fair housing.
Correct. And with a little extra bit of effort, there's another option which I thought of recently. Instead of doing a full-blown master plan, what some towns do is they will attach a land use plan amendment to a reexamination report. And what this effectively does is that the board can take out recommendations from the reexamination report and actually implement them as policies. So that's the distinction, that things that are currently included in this report are recommendations, things to be looked at, but until they're actually put into the master plan, they have no bearing per se as an official land use policy. So just something to consider moving forward. And I'm sure we'll talk about that again in the near future. And the fifth and final reexamination report requirement has to do with recommendations concerning redevelopment plans. And we acknowledge the 2 redevelopment plans associated with the affordable housing requirement. Those are the Newbridge Landing Station and Kindercamack Road redevelopment plans. The Johnson Avenue redevelopment area remains in limbo as the developer or the property owner figures out what they want to do with that. We'll see how that goes. And we've identified several other areas that have been mentioned in the borough's previous reports that may or may not be worth taking a look at from a redevelopment standpoint. So that concludes my overview of the report. If the board has any questions.
Tom, thank you for getting that out to us. I know it's been a challenge. There's a lot that behind the scenes stuff that the council has to deal with the affordable housing and the special master and the judge. And so it's been challenging for both our board and the mayor and council. So I appreciate your hard work behind this, Tom. And I guess moving forward, we'll figure out if there has to be any additions or anything. Any comments from the board? Mr. Merman?
Yes, I have one minor comment. And before I mention it, I want to recognize Tom for his efforts, his Herculean efforts here, especially within the time constraints and everything, all the other action going around, as you mentioned, Mr. Chairman. I offer for a tweak to section 4, item 6, which is recreation and open space. Tom and I had a little discussion. I would like to include in this item, when we tweak it, recognition for the Riverwalk. There is a formal Riverwalk that originates in Edgewater, basically comes along the Hackensack River, and it continues right now behind Riverside Square before entering River Edge. I would like to see a sentence entered in here so for future reference where the land use board in the future is cognizant of the various parcels coming up along our river edge, the physical river edge, for the potential of the walkway. I recognize it'll probably take a decade or two before that actually gets installed, but I would like to put it in here just so that everybody's aware of it. And I think that we can add that in the tweaking phase. We could, as far as I'm concerned, I fully endorse this document as it is today. And I personally would like to see it approved.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Murray.
Tom, does your assistant have anything she wants to speak?
Yeah, she's got a unicorn, but she was
One's the plan.
yeah.
Daddy.
Yeah. So
Life on Zoom. Anybody else have anything they want to say?
Yeah, I have a
Okay.
question.
Anybody want to make a motion to approve this?
So I do have a question.
Sure, Mike.
Tom, if you could, on page 5, 2.1, where it kind of reviews the master plan problems and objectives, the objective 2, I guess the overall goal, right? Maintain character and viability of the established residential neighborhoods. But then under the policy statement, they talk about exploring opportunities for mixed-use development within a quarter mile of the River Edge train station and the Newbridge Landing Station. And I guess my question is, is that a reviewable issue if this gets approved tonight? Because when I look at quarter mile distance from the River Edge train station, I see a pretty well-established residential neighborhood. And, doing mixed-use development in that area doesn't really maintain the character and the viability of that neighborhood. One of the other things that the objectives is, stopping non-local traffic flow through residential streets, which again is kind of contrarian to doing mixed-use development along that quarter mile, which would go all the way up to actually Summit Avenue on the one hand, most of Park Avenue, most of Center and Williams. I mean, so, and that's all residential development. So I guess my question is, are we locked into that objective and that policy statement, or is that something that can be looked at?
It can certainly be looked at, and you bring up some good points. Definitely consider. And so one, the statement, it talks about should be explored. So it's not making a definitive statement per se, but I certainly get where you're coming from, and I think we can modify the language to make it clear that it may not be appropriate in certain areas.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything they want to add?
I have we need to open this discussion to the public before any motion's made.
Taking a motion to open to the public.
Second.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstained? Seeing nobody from the public, I want to ask for a motion to close.
There is somebody.
There is?
Somebody, Sung Sik Kang and Juhi Kim. If you have a question you want to ask, either type it in the chat box or raise your hand. I'll give you a second. They don't appear to have a question.
Could you ask them if they're here for any particular business or?
I can, here.
They said no, thank you.
Yeah, just respond in the chat box.
Okay.
I have a question for Marina. Marina, based on the
Yes.
comment that was just brought up about mixed-use development around the train stations, could the board approve this conditionally if I were to modify that language?
My question was that language that was pointed out by Mr. Cray is actually from the 1984 master plan objectives.
The objective, well, I don't mean to cut you off. The objective is, but the policy statement that follows is a newer comment. So my thought is that if we can somehow tailor it now, if the board were to, let's say, potentially adopt it this evening, based on the comment, if we scratched some component of that statement, if the board could approve it on a conditional basis. Adopt it with the condition of tweaking that language. I'm not sure of the answer. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, I think that you could adopt it today with the condition of that the board will relook at that policy language in any future changes that are made or additions that are made.
Okay, and
I think that's fine.
Okay, all right.
If that makes sense.
I think so. And I think it's something, I think we'll probably have some adjustments in the near future is what I suspect.
Yes. So I think that you could, if we leave the language today, just keep that open as a possibility for change in the future.
Okay.
I'm in agreement. Let's not gum up the works at this point. We can always make those changes again with the flexibility that we're affording ourselves. So we've heard that we've opened to the public. We've all had a chance for comment. At this point, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve
You gotta
plan,
close it to the public. Mr. Chairman, did we close it to the public?
We did, I believe we did.
Okay. Fine.
So, Mr. Merman,
I will be glad to happily make a motion endorsing the master plan, the 2020 master plan and redevelopment regulations as presented in the October 9th, 2020 document prepared by Burgess Associates, with the understanding that there'll be 2 tweaks considered down the road. That the board review any policy changes regarding the outlook and development within a certain radius of the train station locations, and that reference to the Riverwalk be entered into any revised document.
all right. We'll make a note of that and try to get to those issues right at the beginning of the year to get them out of the way.
Correct.
Marina?
I think you're on mute, Marina.
Nope.
Can't hear you.
Something with your microphone, Marina.
Maybe you hit,
There you go.
you hit your volume button or something?
Back.
She's gone.
Okay.
Gonna sign back in. I think she's gonna sign back in, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure she is.
Yeah, you-
Do I need to repeat the motion? Did she get it?
No.
Can you say something?
Yes, Dick Berman here. Question whether Marina heard the motion.
Yes, I heard the motion.
There you
And
go.
we can hear you now.
I'm going to prepare a resolution for next meeting to memorialize whatever the vote is tonight.
Okay.
Marina, can we have a roll call, please? We have a
Okay.
second on that?
I didn't get a second.
Second,
That's Mr. Grasso. And a roll
Okay.
call, please.
Mr. Kellion,
Yes.
Ms. Boland,
Yes.
Mr. Merman,
Most definitely, yes.
Mr. Grasso,
yes.
Mr. Cray,
Yes.
Mr. Caslin,
Yes.
Mr. Esposito.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Folks, I appreciate everybody's indulgence with our technical difficulties.
There's just one more thing on the agenda that we need to discuss, the requirements for remote meetings.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yep.
Sorry. The state issued guidance on all remote public meetings that are held by local government entities. So I drafted a resolution that Ed sent around last week. Just standard procedures that we're going to have to follow for noticing the public and having the public participate via Zoom. So if you have any questions about that, I can always edit the requirements that the board would like.
Ms. Finley, do you need a motion to approve that resolution?
I'll need a motion to approve the rules and then also one to memorialize the resolution.
Okay, so let's first go to the rules. Again, this is more of a housekeeping issue for our clerk and our attorney and our planner than it is for us as members. So that said, I'll entertain a motion to approve the rules.
Mr. Cray? Okay.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Arkelian,
Yes.
Ms. Boland,
Yes.
Mr. Merman,
No.
okay. Mr. Grasso,
Yes.
Mr. Cray,
Yes.
Mr. Caslin,
Yes.
Mr. Esposito.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Merman, you want to elaborate just a little bit on the,
Excessive governance by our state.
okay,
Too many rules by too many people. And I don't think that we totally necessarily need it.
okay. All right, well, yeah, unfortunately,
I know.
can't have our meetings without it, so. Okay, so on that note, I'll entertain a motion to accept the memorialization. Or the resolution, I'm sorry.
Okay, Mr. Cray
I'll second.
and Mr. Caslin. Mr. Arkelian,
Yes,
Ms. Boland,
Yes.
Mr. Merman,
Still no.
Mr. Grasso,
Yes.
Mr. Cray,
Yes.
Mr. Caslin,
Yes.
Mr. Esposito.
Yes.
Okay,
okay, so on the horizon, just to give everybody a heads up, I'm imagining Elizabeth Street will come in eventually with something. So
Mr.
we'll
Chairman,
find out
if-
about that.
Mr.
I'm
Chair,
sorry?
if I could ask, was there any reason given why they looked to carry the application? Just logistics, scheduling, or was there a particular reason?
There were some discussions earlier today on the veracity of the application, and I think that they wanted to re-examine what they were going to try to do there.
Okay.
They were informal. The discussions were informal with the attorney, and I guess he just talked to his client. And they decided they were going to take another look at it.
Very good, thank you.
Okay. So that's coming. We have the restaurant in the strip mall over here on Kentakamak Road, the big strip mall. They've been open for a while. I guess there was a communications issue where they didn't realize they had to come before the board, even though it's the same operation that just changed ownership. So I guess that's what the gentleman was here earlier for. So hopefully we'll get him in at the next meeting. And the Bergen County Historic Society is getting closer, quote unquote, from the informal discussions with myself and Mr. Barrett. So, but I think they are actually making some progress. I know there's going to be some issues that we're going to have coming up with the parking and the crosswalk. We'll deal with it when it comes up, but I just wanted to give everybody a heads up of what we're looking at. Hopefully we can finish out the year in November and hopefully not have to do anything in December. We'll see what our calendar looks like. I wish everybody a great evening. Happy Thanksgiving. Safe and be safe, stay safe, everybody. And again, Councilman Kaufman, thank you again for being a gracious host.
My pleasure.
I got a motion to adjourn.
So made, Merman.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstained? Good evening, everybody. Have a great night.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Take care.
Good night.
Night.
Yeah.